Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning to all of you. I am Dr. Mohammad Murad Hussain, Senior Manager, Medical Affairs, Eskayef Pharmaceuticals Limited. Welcome you all for watching this hybrid CME on antivirals for COVID-19 from home and abroad. Today is a remarkable day for us because in Bangladesh, this will be the first CME in history which are going to be conducted with more than 40 medical institutions of Bangladesh. More than 2,500 doctors will be online and more than 15 countries representative from all over the globe will watch this program. It will be 30 countries. We are also very delighted to have with us Professor Dr. Mohammad Robed Amin, Professor of Medicine and Line Director, NCDC DGHS, for the keynote speech. We are honored to have Professor Dr. M.A. Foyes, Professor Dr. Abdul Jalil Choudhury, Professor Dr. Mohammad Titu Mia, Professor Dr. Mohammad Nazmul Islam, Professor Dr. G.K.M. Shoiduzzaman Sir, Professor Dr. M.A. Hassan Choudhury from Chittagong Medical College, and Professor Dr. Mohammad Khalilur Rahman from Rajshahi Medical College as a panel of experts. Now I would like to invite Mr. Binoy Dash, Associate Director Marketing, Eskayef Pharmaceuticals Limited, to give his welcome address.
Honorable keynote speaker, respected panel of experts, and distinguished doctors connected from different parts of the country and abroad. Welcome you all to this time-demanding hybrid CME. In the past few years, the entire world has been facing the perils of the ever-changing rise and fall of COVID-19 pandemic. However, our doctors community has remained steadfast in their service to mankind by risking their own lives every single day. A big salute to each of you. In the very beginning of COVID-19 outbreak, Eskayef took the mission to stand beside humanity by bringing all possible COVID medicines in Bangladesh. To accomplish this mission, from our managing director to every single department of Eskayef have been constantly striving to make these medicines available at the soonest possible time. That is how, just within 7 days of the emergency use authorization by US FDA, Eskayef launched first generic remdesivir in the world, Remivir, for the people of Bangladesh and across the world. Similarly, within 4 days of UK MHRA approval of Molnupiravir, Eskayef launched first generic Molnupiravir brand Monuvir in the world. Few months back, even when COVID cases were limited in Bangladesh, we had conducted nationwide scientific programs and awareness campaigns against COVID. These programs made us realize the demand of oral COVID medicines in Bangladesh, and we took all the necessary preparations. That is why, soon after the US FDA approval of the combination of Nirmatrelvir with Ritonavir, it has been possible for Eskayef to launch Paxovir tablet as world's first generic brand of this combination to safeguard the people of Bangladesh. Eskayef also believes in embracing technological advancements in its products. For example, when people in our country are consuming esomeprazole in conventional tablet and capsule forms, Eskayef took the initiative to launch ESORAL MUPS with tech transfer from the world-renowned Evonik, Germany. This is how we shall remain persistent in serving the people of this country with best quality medicine in all therapeutic classes, including COVID. We are keenly observing the ongoing clinical trials of other anti-COVID medicines across the world. We want to assure you that Eskayef will keep no stone unturned to bring any further medicines in the days to come. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your nice speech. Now I would like to invite Professor Dr. Mohammad Robed Amin, Professor of Medicine, Line Director, NCDC DGHS, for his presentation.
Thank you very much, first of all, for introducing me to give a talk on the part of the new scientific endeavor on the new oral antivirals for mild to moderate COVID-19. Thank you for arranging such an hybrid, I would say, the CME, and that is presenting with a huge enthusiasm. It's great to see our honorable panelists here as well as also online. It is my pleasure actually to see Professor M.A. Jalil Choudhury sir. He is my direct teacher. He is here on board, and also the Professor H.M. Nazmul Islam sir. He is the director of the CDC, and also Professor Shoiduzzaman sir is honorable and respectable professor of the Shoiduzzaman Medical College. Also, it's a delight to say that on online we have Professor M.A. Foyes, my direct teacher, also Professor M.A. Titu Mia sir, and Professor M.A. Hassan Choudhury and Professor Khalilur Rahman from their respective medical college to part of the panelists. I will be really delighted after the talk what our panelists like to say on this part of new oral antivirals. The audience in the offline as well as online, I like to say after a long time I came in front of you so that we can have a real scientific discussion. First of all, I would say that I don't have any financial interest in the part of the drugs with Eskayef or any other pharmaceuticals company. I don't have any relations with the Merck as well as the Pfizer, so don't worry with any financial issue, but I'd like to give a very thank you for such a wonderful avenue that he has created by the Eskayef to make a presentation very lucid and available to all. So today's talk will be actually on the new oral antivirals for mild to moderate COVID-19. That is to be considered. We all know there are two drugs actually available. So I will be trying to focusing on these two, but mainly only one drug. That's the combinations of the oral antiviral for mild to moderate COVID-19. We all know that for the last few years we have been observing SARS-CoV-2 as a viral infection, and we know many things actually, but still it's a new virus and the virus is still evolving. As you can see, many of the variants are coming and going. So whatever we say that the scientific avenue from the virus up to the knowledge of 2022, that we are expecting these things can be happen in the SARS-CoV-2 infection by means of progression as well as others. But things will be also in future to look after what the virus is going to show again. As we all know that there are pre-symptomatic phases of the virus where the virus get an entry in our body. And interestingly, since then, there is a duration of say around 7 to 10 days when the virus remains in our body as a viremia and the viral genome remains the higher peak. And since then, there may be many evolutions from the infection to the human body and leads to the different clinical manifestation. As you know that there will be features from the asymptomatic phase, then the symptomatic phase will be extending mild to moderate to severe to critical illness. This is how the phases has been described in many of the literature that we have observed by SARS-CoV-2. Now, remind on this part that there will be no prediction when some of the mild to moderate case will lead to the severe and critical illness. There are many risk factors which has been observed, especially in the part of age, like the comorbidities like diabetes mellitus, hypertension, many of the immunosuppressive condition. I'm not going to give the names. But these are the few things that has been observed and said that they could lead to the severity and critical illness. But it is still unpredictable whom and where the hospitalization rate will be more. There has been observations in the last 2 years that when the hospitalization does happen, there will be a pictures of shortness of breath and dyspnea observed in many of the viral pneumonic phases. Interestingly, those having a severe illness can develop ARDS, which will be obviously a very critical issue. And these are the groups of the people used to see in the ICU admission, having a serious critical disease by our physicians all around the globe and treated. And many of them can have a comeback, but unfortunately, there will be a group of people who will die. So I'm not going to say many things about the epidemiology or any other pathophysiological context of SARS-CoV-2 because this is a therapeutic issue. So I'll be starting with the WHO recommendation initially, because in the 14th January, WHO in 2022 gives a therapeutics and COVID-19 living guideline recommendation. You see, they have selected the intervention and make it the study population where the patient with confirmed COVID-19 was observed in 3 groups. One group is non-severe, that is our interest of topic today, mild to moderate case. Then there will be severe case and last of all the critical case. On the right side of the screen, you can see the severe and critical. We will not say anything about these 2 groups, but we will only consideration on the non-severe. And you can see the WHO says that when we are seeing a patient have a mild to moderate illness, it is actually the absence of signs of severe and critical disease. So what is severe illness? The severe illness indicate that when somebody has an hypoxia and the oxygen saturation less than 90. If you have a sign of pneumonia, it may be clinical or radiological, whatever it is, and if there's a severe sign of respiratory distress. So you can see when you do not have any severe sign, then you can see some mild to moderate illness. Now, what is the recommendation of therapeutics? You see, the WHO does not give any recommendations in favor when we are considering about the non-severe or mild to moderate illness. Why? Because WHO need to have accumulating all kind of data, not only the one piecemeal of studies of any high pharmaceuticals company, others. They need a huge amount of data, and then there will be recommendation. The process is going on in the WHO, and hopefully in the future time, they will have a recommendation. What should be the mild to moderate, strong recommendation in favor. Interestingly, there is a conditional recommendation in the mild to moderate illness by means of WHO to use the casirivimab and imdevimab, and also the sotrovimab. Mind it, this recommendation was there when the Omicron is actually taking paces, not in the peak. And when the WHO has given the recommendation, they were not considering the Omicron as a feature. Later on, their statement was that among these two drugs, sotrovimab is a drug which can be recommended universally for any kind of variant of the SARS-CoV-2, but not the casirivimab and imdevimab. WHO has also recommended this combination of drug, a monoclonal antibody, in the severe critical illnesses as well when the Delta was in the upsurge. Interesting, WHO has given serious recommendation against few of the drugs. Among them, one of them is that in non-severe or mild to moderate illness, do not use corticosteroids. So this is an absolutely brilliant idea. I would say that this is against using it for the mild to moderate illness. Our physicians and all our people should know that corticosteroids should not be used in non-severe illness. Secondly, there are a few other drugs that has been in the pipeline, like the roxolitinib and tofacitinib. And WHO is saying that the best drug for severe critical illness, if you want to reduce the immunosuppressive or the immunity or the hyperimmune response, then we can use either IL-6 receptor blocker, tocilizumab, or the baricitinib. If somebody does not have any access to this drug, then you can use the roxolitinib or tofacitinib. WHO is also saying that there is a conditional recommendation against use the remdesivir because there has not been high quality of evidence for the remdesivir, WHO has, according to them. But this is a big question because many of the authorities and many of the countries in their guideline uses the remdesivir in different grades of the illness in the COVID-19. WHO also said there is a conditional recommendation against the use of ivermectin, which can be only used in the context of clinical trial rather than giving. But there was a strong recommendation against use the convalescence plasma in mild to moderate illness in COVID-19. So there has been huge use of the convalescence plasma in our country and also the globe. So this is a strong recommendation. Do not use the convalescence plasma in any mild to moderate illness. Do not use the hydroxychloroquine and lopinavir, ritonavir in any patients of any degree of severity in COVID-19. So this is in short about the WHO recommendation. But remember, COVID-19 is streaming high, Omicron comes up and it takes up stall all over the globe. So there will be always many of the approved treatment for the COVID-19 by different authorities.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Many of the countries in many of the guidelines. So let's see what will the approval treatment that has been established in the COVID-19. My impression is that the first one will be oxygen, because this is the hypoxia that leads to the big problem of the people, and the people are dying due to the hypoxia. So this is the number one treatment, the oxygen. And it has been recommended to give the graded oxygen therapy in hospital setting for the severe to critical illness. So you can see, do not use the oxygen even for the mild to moderate illness. It be recommended only for severe to critical. Steroids, like the oral and IV dexamethasone, it should be preferably given in the hospital setting and also recommended for severe to critical illness. So steroids should not be used in non-hypoxic patient. The patient who does not have any less oxygen saturation hypoxia should not be receiving any steroid. So people who are having treatment in their home should not receive steroid. So this is second issue. Third is anticoagulant, which we know that is in two form, either subcutaneous IV infusion, that should be provided in hospital setting. Again, I'm saying this will be recommended for hospital setting, and we can use it for the moderate to severe to critical illness. Now, regarding the medicine, there has been approval for the giving remdesivir in many of the authorities, which is available in injectable IV infusion. Preferably, it should be given in the hospital setting because it's an IV infusion form, and you can also select to give it a moderate to severe illness. And remember, the critical illness does not actually need any remdesivir. That means if somebody is having a prolonged duration in the ICU setting, there's no role for this one. There is obviously huge recommendation came up for the tocilizumab, which is also an injectable IV infusion. Obviously, it should be given in the hospital setting for reduction of the dysregulated immune responses, and chooses indication is a severe to critical illness. And about the monoclonal antibody, which is the Regeneron CoV, casirivimab and imdevimab, injectable and is also IV infusion, has to be given in the hospital setting, but this is the one drug that can be chosen to give in the mild to moderate illness. But remember, many of the people of them actually are not hospitalized. So if there is an IV infusion clinic, any outdoor clinic, that will be a suitable area because this is always an injection. But very recently, there are a few oral drugs came up which will be very much helpful for any physician or as well as many patients who is having mild to moderate illness at their home. So there are 2 oral anti-COVID medicine that has been authorized by the US FDA and UK MHR. Number 1 is Molnupiravir. It has been already launched few months back in Bangladesh. And there is a new drug which is known as the Nirmatrelvir co-packaged with Ritonavir. This is also popularly known as the Pfizer's PAXLOVID. So my impression is that I will be giving more highlight on the part of Nirmatrelvir co-packaged with Ritonavir. This is also popularly known as the Nirmatrelvir, which is also augmented by Ritonavir. So the talk will be concentrated on how does it actually works, and who is it for, and what is the evidence. This is the science that I will be giving interest for all of you. So what is PAXLOVID actually? They say this is the Nirmatrelvir tablets which is co-packaged with Ritonavir tablet. And you know that Nirmatrelvir is a SARS-CoV-2 main protease inhibitors, which I will be coming up just a bit later. And Ritonavir is an HIV protease inhibitors and CYP3A inhibitor. This is a metabolism that we are concentrating. Nirmatrelvir is actually available in immediate release form. There are film-coated tablet as well as many other tablets. This 8 tablets actually consist of 150 milligram of Nirmatrelvir. What about the Ritonavir? Well, Ritonavir is available in a film-coated tablet, and each tablet actually consists of 100 milligram of Ritonavir. You can see the chemical chemistry of below the slides. I'm not going to say anything about the chemical issues or biochemical because it will make things complicated, but this is available online if anyone wants to know the chemical structure of it. But the big issue, how does it work? I'm giving you a pen picture actually, how the virus actually do their replication in our cell, so that we can easily say how the Paxlovid and Molnupiravir usually works. We all know something about the SARS-CoV-2. It has a spike protein, and by the science we know that in the spike protein there is a specific domain known as the receptor binding domain. What I like to mention that in this receptor binding domain there are 2 things. One is called the pre-fusion protein, another is called the post-fusion protein. Means that when it is combined with the AC2 receptors, it has to have changes in their structure to lead to post-confusion or post-fusion protein, which is very crucial for any replication of the virus in our body. But importantly, when the spike protein get an entry through the AC2 receptor in our cell and get the entry of viral messenger RNA, our own ribosome, cell's own ribosome came up and immediately made some of the protein. This is very important because these are the large protein known as the polyprotein. This polyprotein that you are actually seeing, the larger version of the protein here, is very crucial for the replication of the viruses. Why? Because this big protein need to be cleaved at different location to get a smaller protein. If the smaller protein is produced, they can combine and then make another protein known as the replicase, or which is also known as the RNA dependent polymerase, through which the virus will replicate. So you can see this long protein need to be break down or trim to make a small protein, and this will be done by means of protease. This main protease is also produced from the messenger RNA of virus, and also it is by means of our own ribosome. So you can see virus is actually uses our own machineries and snatch it and make their own protein for their replication. This is wonderful. And this is very important. Why? Because this product of Paxlovid or the Nirmatrelvir works over the main protease. It inhibits there. So if it inhibits, the long large protein will not be trimmed. And if it is not trimmed, there is no option that you can have the replicase. So virus replication will be stopped. So this is the wonderful, beautiful science that has been created by our scientists, and say the products will be doing early. If we can give an early, it will inhibit the replication of the virus. Because when the replicase enzyme is already developed, it then works on the part of messenger RNA to develop many of the RNA strands. And when many of the RNA strands happen, it can transcribe and also translate to different structural, non-structural as well as accessory protein, which is essential for assembly, packaging, and then develop a new virus. You can see on the right side of the lower portion, a new virus already developed, and it can be excluded from the cell. So billions and trillions of virus can develop when you have given the chances of virus replication. So that is why nirmatrelvir is a super drug, because it early inhibits the process of replication. Once the replication started in the RNA-dependent RNA polymerase, then the molnupiravir can work. It can cause serious mutations, and there will be a serious amount of error catastrophe happen, which will inhibit the replication as well as developing different messenger RNA from the viral. So it will work a little bit later. So I will say that if you consider about the virus entry and their exclusion from the cell, the most earlier part that we can package it is the protease inhibitor, and this is where the nirmatrelvir works. But what is the problem? Problem is that nirmatrelvir can be easily metabolized by a P450 CY3 system. See, if that system remains in the body, it will be easily break down, so that the effect will be reduced. So that is why ritonavir has been packaged. Ritonavir does not have any direct effect on the part of SARS-CoV protease inhibitors. It can inhibit the HIV protease inhibitors, but here what will happen? It will inhibit the P450 CYP3 enzyme. If that enzyme becomes inhibited, the metabolism of nirmatrelvir will be prolonged, and so that it can work more and more, and so that it can affect more and more for virus clearance. That is why they make a co-package nirmatrelvir with ritonavir. This combination will help not only work for the nirmatrelvir for long, also inhibit the metabolism of different drugs. But always make a confusion that when somebody is having a problem with a P450 CYP3 enzyme, there will be many other drugs from the outside which will also metabolize by this process. So when somebody is giving the ritonavir in a drug, be careful of those drugs who's actually having many of the metabolism by the same enzyme. So you can see it's a peptidomimetic inhibitors of the SARS-CoV-2 main protease inhibitors, and it has a different protease which acts through this nirmatrelvir, and it is also make it capable of processing the polyprotein precursor I have shown you, so that prevents the virus replication. Interestingly, it has been found that when the recombinations of the MPRO in the biochemical assay has been observed, it has been shown that huge effect by means of IC50 value and others. Interestingly, when the X-ray crystallography happens, it shows that at a particular location site, when the protease inhibitor is working for cleavage, the nirmatrelvir acts over there. So you can see this is a very selective drug, where the 11th site where the protein breakdown happen, it works at 11 sites. So that is the reason why it becomes a revolutionary things about the science developing in the oral medicine working so quickly. I told you about something about the ritonavir. So you can see this is the HIV-1 protease inhibitor, but not active against the SARS-CoV-2 main protease inhibitors. It inhibits the CYP3 mediated metabolism of nirmatrelvir, so that the plasma concentration of the nirmatrelvir goes up. Now let's come to the part of the human studies that we have concerned. There are 3 clinical studies initially done by the Pfizer's PAXLOVID. One is called the EPIC-HR, means that evaluation of protease inhibitors in COVID-19 study. HR means high risk patient. So they selected 2,246 patients of COVID-19, and in that study against the placebo, it has been found that 89% reductions of the COVID-19 related hospitalization or death happened. So that's a wonderful observation when the EPIC-HR study report came up. So you can see on the graph when the PAXLOVID, or the naming of the Paxovir in the Eskayef, I would say that given against the placebo, the difference is huge. It causes hospitalization only 0.7, while it is 6.5. I'll be given a few of the data a few slide later, so that you can understand why I am giving so much importance on this part. The study also shows that there has been serious risk reduction in around 94% when the age group is more than 65. So that is big issue, because it's an important individual risk factor of severity and critical illness. So any patient who is having more than 65, you will be even more interested to give those drugs, because the reduction rate or efficacy becomes more and more. Another issue is that we want to know whether it directly reduces the virus load or not. Now in that EPIC study or HR, it has been shown that the Paxlovid reduces the viral load approximately tenfold. So it's around 0.93 log per ml relative to the placebo, which means that there will be very strongest virus load reduction by means of any oral IV drug for the COVID-19. There's a second study which has been taken up by the Pfizer, was the EPIC-SR, means that evaluation of protease inhibition of COVID-19 in standard risk patient, means that we people here, having somebody hypertension but control, having diabetes mellitus but control, this kind of people are said standard risk patient. Now in that study, the secondary endpoint also shows there is a 70% reduction in the hospitalizations. So you can see that 2 out of 3 will not go to the hospital if we can provide it as early as possible. And interestingly, there was no death. And when the virus load has been observed, again it is shown that 10-fold reduction of the viral load happened pretty quickly in the phase 2-3 EPIC-HR study. So this is the phase 2-3 trial that we are saying about oral protease inhibitor. Important point is that who are the patients they have selected? So they have selected actually the higher risk outpatient whose oxygen saturation was more than 92%, and interestingly those people who are unvaccinated. The selection criteria of less than 5 days of symptom onset, and the drug has been given in the package of 300 milligram of nitramavir and 100 milligram of ritonavir. So this is the combination that has been given in the PAXLOVID phase 2-3 trial. So you can see I told you about the combination. So when you are thinking about the combination, you have to take 2 tablets of 150 milligram of nitramavir and also 1 tablet of ritonavir. So there will be total of 3 tablets in 1 pack. In this 1 pack, you do 3 tablets morning and 3 tablets at night, and so that you can take it for the 5 days duration. This is how the dosage schedule should be given to the people. And this is the same practice has been taken in the PAXLOVID 2 and 3 trial. Now, interestingly, the PAXLOVID 2 and 3 trial is consisting initially planned for 3,000 subjects in 5 continents of the globe, not only in the United States of America. This is a big news, and you can see the selection criteria. SARS-CoV-2 confirmed positive, mild moderate symptom less than 5 days, no hospitalization, more than 12 years of age, weight should be 40 kg or 88 pounds, and at least 1 risk factor that I was telling about. I will be given the pen picture of the trial so that you can easily understand why this is so much important. You see, the criteria of the N was 3,000, they planned it for it, but when the subject gave up 1,219, the study was stopped. Why? Because the Data Safety Monitoring Committee said the benefit was such that if somebody want to continue the study, it will be unethical. Because the placebo groups, they need to be given recommendation immediately for this drug. That is the reason why the study was stopped. Now, about the results, let's check. There are few of the groups who take less than 3 days of the drug, and there are few of the groups who take less than 5 days of the duration of the drug. I mean the duration of illness. And among them, on the left side you can see the Paxlovid, on the right side you see placebo. The hospitalization was only 3 out of 389. So it arounds 0.8% hospitalization there. On the right side you can see placebo. At the same time, on the 385 patient, 27 get hospitalized. Means that 7% people needed to the hospitalization. Look at the death. When it is given within the 3 days duration of time, there was a 0 death among the 389. In the placebo, there is a 7 death happened, which is 1.8%. So the relative risk means that relative to the placebo was 89% reduction for hospitalization. But my impression is, look at this one, the percentage, 0.8% and 7%. When you just calculate 7 minus 0.8, it will came up 6.2%. This is called absolute risk reduction. Means that whether a drug absolutely reduces how much, and when the 6.2% you are considering absolute risk reduction, all you need to is make it 100 divided by 6.2. This will give us a calculation of number needed to treatment. So number needed to treatment for the less than 3 days is 17, means that we need to give 17 people treatment for the mild to moderate category of COVID-19 in home to reduce 1 hospitalization. That is wonderful for a drug, and given orally, very cheap, as easily suitably given. And about the death, when you are considering, the same thing happens, 1.8% death happens for the absolute risk reduction, which indicate that 56 patients need to be treated with the Paxlovid, or the combination drug to reduce one death in this. Now, you may say that 56 is a large number, but I would say when there's a millions of people are suffering from the mild or moderate illness, a 56 number is a huge number of importance if you're considering death as an outcome. Even for the less than 5 days duration, you can see there's a 85% reductions of the relative reductions, and there's a 5.7% absolute risk reduction, means that you need to treat 18 people to give a 1 people not to get admitted in the hospital. So number needed to treatment becomes 18, and number needed to treatment for the death becomes 63. And that is the reason why it has become so early of recommendation, and the start was stopped immediately so that it can be recommended for all. About the safety and availability, I can show you this very important. Adverse event was 19% in Paxlovid group, but 21% in the placebo group. So serious adverse event was 1.7%, and look at this, 6.6% in the placebo group. Now, I will be saying that very carefully, see these things, because people are not receiving the drug. Many of the people of them will be serious. Means that these people may not have any drug-related serious event, rather they have a serious illness and lead to hospitalization. So the discontinuation of the drug was less in the Paxlovid because the people are getting better, while it is more in the placebo group because many of the people are going to the ICU. So that's the reason why they may have to go to the discontinuation of the drugs. About few things about the availability, you see this is a one company started by means of the Pfizer. I will be saying that Eskayef and many other pharmaceuticals company of Bangladesh came up. Thank you very much for coming up, because we need a serious demand if you consider globally. United States think that 120 million people in 2022 needed these drugs for the globe, and they have purchased 10 million drugs for their own country. And for the 10 million drugs, they need to have 5.3 billion drugs, cash money for the United States of America. Huge amount of money that is needed for to cover the United States of America. So the cost is very important issue. Whether any country needs to be considered about the costing is very important. Now, how about the authorization? So because the FDA immediately authorized, it comes to say that the Patricia Cavazzani, she is the director of the FDA Center for Drug Evaluation and Research, she says that it's a new tool to combat the COVID-19 in a very crucial time when the new variants are emerging, and promises to make antiviral treatment more accessible. I will say that this is very important to know about the variants, because you see the variants of concern is concentrate on the part of spike protein. But here the oral drugs are concentrating on the protease inhibitors as well as replicase enzyme. So variant of concern will not be a concern for oral drug. This is a very good news. We all know Dr. Eric Topol, a wonderful personality of Executive Vice President. He's a big physician for a globe. And he says that beside the vaccine, one of the revolutionary scientific change was the oral drug. And he was saying that this nirmatrelvir plus ritonavir may be a good, as because that gives a 90% reduction of hospitalization death. And there was no big issue of safety. So that's the reason why he was very much enthusiastic on the part. And obviously, the Pfizer CEO give this highly effective against the Omicron was a big news for him. So immediately, international media came up, and not only the part, the BMG as well as other authorities came up that Health Canada, Health Singapore, they immediately approved the Pfizer COVID-19 antiviral treatment, and the UK regulator immediately goes for the antiviral approval. Pfizer becomes hailed as a game changer. There are many saying about this thing of the drug. And also it says that how antivirals provide hope for the vulnerable COVID-19 patient. So that's wonderful. So you can see the recommendation when provided by the FDA, as I said, that you can use this combination of drug in mild to moderate COVID-19 in adult as well as in pediatric patient more than 12 years of age, more than 40 kg, with a positive result of direct SARS-CoV-2 testing, and who are at high risk of progression to severe COVID-19, inclusion of the hospitalization death. I told you about the dosage. It is 300 mg nirmatrelvir, means 150 mg 2 tablet, with 100 mg ritonavir, 3 tablets taken together orally twice daily for 5 days, and can also be taken with or without food. No problem with that. The treatment course duration is 5 days, and it should be initiated as soon as possible. I told you less than 3 days duration was even found better than the less than 5 duration of the treatment. But treatment duration should be always 5 days. Another important that if somebody is taking the PAXLOVID or combination drug and then he developed the severity illness so that he can go to the hospital, the recommendation is to continue and course completion of the 5 days duration of the PAXLOVID. Now about the patients with renal impairment. You see, this is important because in severe renal impairment, when the GFR is less than 30 ml per minute, there is a not recommended to be given this combination drug, because you can see in the list chart, when the severe renal impairment happens, the maximum, the area under coverage, the concentration becomes so much that it could lead to the toxicity. So that's the reason why for the mild renal to moderate renal impairment, it can be provided. For the moderate impairment, the duration of the drug, the nirmatrelvir will be only 1 tablet, means 150 milligram, with ritonavir twice daily should be given in that case for 5 days. For the hepatic impairment, for the child PAC class C, it is not recommended because it can cause a severe hepatic impairment at the same time. For other child PAC class A or B, it can be provided with no dose adjustment at all. Now, serious issue about the contraindication. I would say that there are many drug-drug interactions that need to be considered. And physicians all over who are prescribing this drug must know something about these drugs. Number one thing, if anybody has any hypersensitivity to any of the component of the drug of nirmatrelvir or ritonavir, should not use this drug, number one. Second thing, there are many other drugs I told you who is be metabolized by P450 CYP3 enzyme. So if that drug remains in the body and if you provide this combination drug, there could be a chance that those drugs will not be effective, or there may be a chance of toxicity of those drugs. So somebody having an alpha-1 adrenal receptor antagonist in the name of alfujosin, analgesic in the form of pethidine, piroxicam, the anti-anginal drug, the ranolazine, the anti-arrhythmic drug, especially the amiodarone, dronedarone, propafenone and quinidine and flecainide, should not be used when we are providing the PAXLOVID. We should not use the colchicine when we are prescribing this drug. Lurasidone, pimozidol, clozapine, this should be stopped if somebody is providing. And also the ergot derivatives. We are frequently using the HMG co-inhibitors like the simvastatin, lovastatin, other groups of drug. Sildenafil for pulmonary hypertension as well as the impotency, and also the triazolam oral midazolam drug. Now remember, these are highly dependent on the CYP3A for clearance, and for which the elevated concentration of those drugs are become a serious life-threatening condition. So if somebody is receiving these drugs, should be stopped for a duration of 5 to 7 days if somebody is providing the PAXLOVID. Second thing, there are many other drugs which itself causes the CYP3 inducer, so that nirmatrelvir effect will be reduced. So if somebody take an anti-cancer drug or anticonvulsant drug like carbamazepine that many people used to take, phenobarbital and phenytoin, or rifampicin, this drug induces this enzyme so that nirmatrelvir effect will be reduced. So if somebody taking this drug also need to be stopped for a duration of 5 to 7 days so that the nirmatrelvir and ritonavir can act. An important issue is that many of the herbal products also has been shown to have serious effect if we give this combination of drug. So the drug-drug interaction is very important. Any physician who is going to prescribe this know these drugs, and also people who are taking this drug should tell their physicians what are the drugs they are taking. These are the pharmacokinetics. I am not going to say a lot of things about those things, but important issue is that when your combinations of ritonavir happen, it actually shows the human plasma bonding protein is less, so that drug can really act very well. The renal elimination, other thing has been shown up there. So it's a wonderful combination of drug, I would say, to have a good pharmacokinetic property. There's no available human data on pregnancy. The study was not done there. So preferably it should not be given to the pregnant lady. But remember, the high-risk pregnancy group who have a mild to moderate illness have every chance that they can go to the severity. And there has been many of the ample data on ritonavir of safety in the pregnancy. Only thing is that nirmatrelvir, by its unique mechanism of action, if any of the physicians think that this is a high-risk pregnancy can lead to severity, they can prescribe this drug by giving the benefit and risk ratio. If the benefit is more, the recommendation is to use this drug. Pediatric, there is no recommendation to give it less than 12 years or 40 because there is no data available. There are limitations not authorized for the initiation of treatment who require hospitalization. It is not recommended for any severe or critical COVID-19. We must think this is very important, because in hospital setting there are other protocols and other guidelines. We also have our national guidelines, so need to be followed that one. We should not use it for the severe to critical illness. There has been one study happens for the PAXLOVID for the post-exposure prophylaxis. This is not data available yet, so we cannot recommend it for the pre and post-exposure prophylaxis right now. And we should not use it for more than 5 consecutive days because there's less of data. Now, the remdesivir, this is another antiviral drug. Why I mentioned this is not an oral drug, but I'm mentioning it because I'm telling something about the mild to moderate illness. You can see there's one study of 3 days remdesivir in outpatient or infusion clinic, where 279 patients was given intravenous remdesivir for 3 days and 283 patients received the placebo. And when the outcome was seen about the hospitalization, they found that only 2 patients of the remdesivir goes to the hospital, while 15 patients of the placebo goes to the hospital. Again, I am saying 0.7% and 5.3, and if you deduce that one, you can have 4.6. So the number needed to treatment for the remdesivir will be 25. Means that 25 people of mild to moderate need to be treated with the IV drug of remdesivir to reduce one hospitalization. So you can see the relative risk reduction is 87%, but when you consider of NNT, it becomes 25. But the PAXLOVID, it becomes 17. So remdesivir was also recommended by many authorities to use it for the mild moderate illness, and that is the reason why FDA Center says that a 3-day course of the remdesivir within 7 days of symptom onset in mild to COVID-19 cases resulted in relative risk of 87% lower risk of hospitalization death than placebo, which is a good drug. So which means that we have many of the 2 oral antiviral drug and 1 IV antiviral drug for mild to moderate illness. So you can right now have a lot of options, and this all 3 will be X against the Omicron variant. So this is a comparison you can see against the molnupiravir, which I am not going to repeat talk today, against the PAXLOVID and the monoclonal antibody. You see the number needed to treatment for the monoclonal antibody is also closely around 18, like that of the PAXLOVID. But this is important that monoclonal antibody will not act against the Omicron variant except the sotrovimab. So the combination will not act. This is one. And second thing, this is the IV drug has to be given to infusion in an hospital setting. So there is a serious amount of Omicron impact on choosing oral antiviral drug in the mild to moderate illness. This is the comparison that we are saying that population to avoid for the molnupiravir is the pregnancy and breastfeeding, and women who is trying to conceive. You cannot provide the molnupiravir because the molnupiravir has been said that there is a chance of toxicity in the reproductive system, and there is a chance of mutation can develop in human host cell. So that is the reason why there was a selection. It has to be given to be as a 4th line of drug, not a 1st line of drug. And the effectiveness of molnupiravir was found to have 30%. So that is the result. It's a good drug, but it should be reserved only when you cannot provide the combinations of oral viral, when we cannot provide the sotrovimab, which is a wonderful number needed to treat, and when we are not providing remdesivir. So this is the comparison between the 3 drugs. You can see less than 5 days duration. We need to think about molnupiravir and nirmatrelvir. There is no study of molnupiravir below 18 years. Nirmatrelvir has a good that it has studied from the 12 years above, and the remdesivir you can provide within the 7 days of illness. It is also being provided for 12 years and above, and the 3 days of IV infusion is recommendation. The dosage has been given for the molnupiravir 4 plus 0 plus 4 for 5 days. For the nirmatrelvir it's a 3 plus 0 plus 3 for 5 days. Can take with or without food. For the kidney patient, you do not have to adjustment for molnupiravir. For severe renal impairment, hepatic impairment, we cannot provide the Paxovir or the nirmatrelvir ritonavir group. The regulatory approval, both of them has UK MHRA and FDA approval. Remdesivir is the only FDA approval. The effectiveness obviously far better than the combination rather than other remdesivir and molnupiravir. This is the sotrovimab paper that has been published in New England Journal of Medicine, which also shows that highly effective, around 70 to 85% relative risk reduction, and number needed to treatment was even 12 for the sotrovimab. But interestingly, this is also IV drug to be provided, and also safety profile is quite good. So that is the reason why NIH started the panel recommendation for mild to moderate illness to choose the listed drugs in order of preference. The first preference was the ritonavir boosted nirmatrelvir. The second choice would be sotrovimab. The third choice will be remdesivir, and the fourth will be molnupiravir. And they say that when you do not have ritonavir boosted nirmatrelvir, or you cannot give it by means of contraindication or serious drug-drug interaction, then think, can you provide them sotrovimab or not? If you don't have any sotrovimab, think, can you provide them with injection remdesivir for 3 days or not? If all the 3 days cannot be given for any reason, then you think to give molnupiravir. That is the recommendation from NIH, and very recently by our Honorable Director Nazmul Islam sir has taken an initiative for our national guideline to introduce these drugs, and the authority also given the similar kind of recommendation for our country, and hopefully it will be very soon available to our physician. So I'm just going to be end pretty soon. Sorry for taking a lot of time. The key message is number needed to treatment for PAXLOVID is only 17 to 18. And the drug is need to be given safely because there is a drug-drug interaction. PAXLOVID or the combination need to be used too early, preferably less than 3 days. Of course, it has to be less than 5 days from a symptom onset before someone is deemed ill because it doesn't work that appropriately at that time. More than 12 years of age with at least one risk factor with mild to moderate illness at home is the ideal candidate. Lack of study that is evaluating the role of PAXLOVID in breakthrough infection following vaccination. There will be studies coming up. Further studies need to be done to establish interference with available vaccine, works against different kind of variants, which is good news due to the unique mechanism of action. Cost effectiveness and accessibility for all is a major issue that needs to be dealt with the effect of PAXLOVID with other therapy of COVID-19 need to be examined. That's all. I'm stopping out there. I hope few questions may be arising for our panelists so that I can listen very carefully. Thank you very much for giving me the time. Thank you.
Sir, thank you. No words is enough for your excellent and informative presentation. Just now, I have gone through different questions and comments in the chat box, and I just want to read one comment for our today's speaker. And this comment is from Dr. Zawan Singh, India. We always love to listen to Professor Dr. Mohammad Robed Amin. Highly academic session. Thanks to Eskayef team to connect us with him. So I think I have gone through a lot of comments from Uzbekistan, from Uganda, from Kazakhstan, from Pakistan, from Afghanistan, lot of comments. So it is really encouraging for us. But out of lot of questions, I will take 2 questions. And first question is from Uzbekistan, and the question is from Dr. Alex Rake. Does this product help with Omicron? I think it is a very good question also for the Bangladeshi doctors.
Thank you very much for this question. You see, I told you the Omicron variant has a unique capability to have a mutation on the part of spike protein. So there are around more than 20 mutation happens in the spike protein by the Omicron variant. So any product that will act on against the spike protein will have a serious impact, like the monoclonal antibody, which is available and it causes neutralizations of the spike protein related antigens in the blood. So when you change that one, obviously the monoclonal antibody of IV will not work. But the good news is that sotrovimab acts as a different way. I told you when it combines with our receptor, AC2 receptor, it has 2 parts. One is called the pre-fusion protein, another is called the post-fusion protein. So if you consider not to involve the post-fusion protein, just concentrate on the pre-fusion protein, then there's a chance that you can have a work on the part of this Omicron variant. And that is the reason why only sotrovimab acts against the Omicron variant. But for the PAXLOVID or the Paxovir that is taken up by the Eskayef, this is very unique because it works on the cytoplasm when the protease inhibitors actually works for the replication enzyme. So this is not related to the spike protein. Once it goes on the part of polyprotein, and that polyprotein need to be packaged up. Here the Paxlovid actually works. So there's no way Omicron variant can have an interference with the drug for their mechanism of action. That is the reason why the oral drug of Paxlovid as well as molnupiravir will not have any impact on the part of Omicron.
Thank you, sir. Our second question is from Dr. Mohammad Asifur Rahman from Chittagong. He just want to know if we start Paxovir, after 3 or 5 days the patient goes complicated, then can we use remdesivir?
This is a good question. I think this could be possible, although the study was very good, but when we are in the real world, there's every chance that we are taking the drug and people may go to the severity, hypoxia, and go to the hospital. The recommendation is to complete the dosage of the Paxlovid over 5 days, and then you make a decision whether the antiviral need to be given or not, whether this is the viremia that is a concern, or is the dysregulated immune response is a concern. So when the patient becomes hospitalized, you may think whether it is a duration within 10 days, then you can think, yes, we can switch it over to go to the injectable and the severe. We have that product. But if it is not within the 10 days and the immune response is very high, then think about to provide him tocilizumab, or think he provide initially, of course, oxygen and after steroids, then tocilizumab or baricitinib will be a good drug for them.
Sir, our third question is from Pabna, and the question comes from Dr. Mohammad Mahbub Rahman. His question is very clinical, I think. He asked to know what adverse effect Paxlovid appears.
Okay, I think that's a very good question, which I didn't mention. I think I keep something for our panelists. Of course, panelists has will be more thing to say. But what I like to mention that when somebody is taking this combination drug, the first impression the patient will give you that they have a dysgeusia. Somebody said that I have a bitter taste in the mouth. That's a very common complaint that people will have. Second complaint will be have abdominal discomfort because this is as a ritonavir. I told you, ritonavir is an enzyme inhibitor in the P450 system, and that is more commonly seen in liver as well as GI tract cell. So that is the reason why GI upset will be more. But remember, the Omicron variant, also the COVID-19, will also have a GI upset in the form of diarrhea. So it may be due to disease, it may be also due to drug, but if somebody is having a problem with that one, I think the drug can be stopped at that moment. So this is the more common complaint that usually seen is the dysgeusia and the bitter taste in the mouth and the GI upset. This is a common side effect.
Okay, thank you, sir. Sir, we have a very good question from renowned cardiologist, Professor Wadu Chaudhuri, sir. And his question is, what are the risks of drug interaction in cardiac patients taking a lot of active medicines?
That's a wonderful question about the cardiologist. Of course, Professor Wadu sir is an expert on the part, but I would say that P450 CYP3A is a specific enzyme. It doesn't mean that P450 metabolism by all other drugs will be affected. There will be always a selective drug for this metabolism by P450 CYP3A. So those are the drugs that need to be stopped, like antiarrhythmic drug if somebody is receiving the amiodarone, if somebody is receiving the disopyramide, flecainide, this kind of drugs. So very recently in Chittagong, there's an older age person who has atrial fibrillation on amiodarone as well as having the mild to moderate illness. So she was actually taking my consultation whether can we provide this drug or not. I say that if you have a very good rate control, can you stop the drug for a duration of illness of 5 to 7 days? Then you can also consider to give this drug. Otherwise, you have a second option of sotrovimab. If you cannot give, go for the remdesivir. So the drug dependency is very important. If somebody has to take the constant drug, anti-cardiac drug, anti-arrhythmic drug, then you can have an alternative option rather than giving the Paxlovid.
Sir, we will take our last question, and this question is from Afghanistan, and the question maker was Dr. Javed. I think we know all about this question. Is there any head-to-head study between Molnupiravir and Paxlovid?
I'm afraid there's no such study.
Okay,
there's no such study between the Paxlovid versus Molnupiravir. There's no such study between the different monoclonal antibody even, sotrovimab versus the combination. There's no such one-by-one study between the combination oral drug versus the combination monoclonal antibodies. So we cannot compare these things. And there's no reason, that is the reason we cannot make a combination of those drugs to given for mild moderate, because that could lead to a more severity of drug interaction and illness as well. So it's always choose a single drug, either it may be nilumethelbir or as a first choice. If you can provide it, sotrovimab. If you don't have that drug, go for the injection remdesivir 3 days. And if you cannot have that drug even, the last option is the molnupiravir.
Thank you, sir. And this is the end of our question answer session. Now this is the time for panel discussion, and we are very happy to with us with Professor Dr. Mohammad Khalilur Rahman, sir, Head of the Department of Medicine, Rajshahi Medical College. Can we connect Professor Khalilur Rahman, sir? Khalil, sir, আপনি কি আমাকে শুনতে পাচ্ছেন?
Yes, I am with you. I can hear you.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Thanks to Professor Jalil sir, my teacher, Professor Faiz sir, my colleague, presenter Professor Rubid Amin, and other concerned, as well as Eskayef Pharmaceuticals for arranging such type of very important and time-demanding presentation. Professor Rubid Amin already presented his presentation elaborately and leaving nothing untouched. I think COVID-19 is a threat to all over the world, also to me, also to us, and Bangladesh also. And this presentation will be helpful for the management of recent variant COVID. And I think his presentation guide us the newer variant that will be faced, that can be treated by this drug also. One thing I like to add, there are a lot of misconception, lot of mistreatment or over-treatment already existed in our country. By this presentation, that remote over-treatment will be at least partially reduced. But one question, I think, the newer variant, what will come, we do not know. Whether this medication will act on this or not. But Rubid Amin presented his presentation in such a way that this combination of drug like nirmatrelvir and ritonavir will act on newer variant. So we can hope for the better. We hope that corona will be treated adequately and appropriately by this medication. Another question for me, the cost of this medication, that is nirmatrelvir and ritonavir. Per course, so far I can remember, it will be 15,000 or 16,000. But it will act on mild disease. But we are also telling that mild disease can be treated symptomatically only. So how we can demarcate? We'll treat this patient by giving only symptomatic treatment or by using 16,000 taka or 15,000 taka. It will be a question for general people. Eskayef Pharmaceuticals will also consider these important things. So I do not taking more time. Again, I like to thanks Professor Rubid Amin for his nice, elaborate and time-demanding presentation, as well as greetings from my Rajshahi Medical College, as well as Department of Medicine to him and to all of you. Thank you all. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your speech.